Hi, welcome to the Hmong Women Podcast.
I'm Ariel.
I'm Dochi.
And I'm Emily. Thanks for joining us again today. If you haven't already, go ahead and like this video, subscribe if you haven't, and go ahead and follow us on our socials to where today we're going to talk about old habits we've gotten rid of, habits we're looking to form, and things we're looking forward to in the new year. So we're excited to get talking to about that and hopefully inspire you to start something new in the new year for yourself. So let's get started. So habits. What are some bad habits or good habits that you stopped, started, and you want to continue? And I'm happy to start. So there are some bad habits that I definitely have stopped, and I'm happy that I've stopped. And I hope to continue to go into the new year not doing those things, not doing. Some of those bad habits is smoking. So as you both know, I was a pretty heavy smoker. I smoked for a pretty long time, I think over 10 years. I was always an on and off quitter, I would say. I think Ariel and Dochi has heard the story multiple times where it'd be like, I quit smoking, and then they would see me smoking like a few months later. And a part of that for me was just smoking was something that I used as a way to deal with my stress. But smoking was also something that I always found, what's a way, the best way for me to describe it is something that I always found smelled good and tasted good. It was an addiction to me, basically, is what it was. I had always thought of it as something like really delicious. And so that's a bad habit that and a bad addiction that I've stopped. And I've officially stopped, I think 2 months ago, officially. I haven't had a cigarette in, I think, 2 months. And I know that I have officially stopped because Dochi and I were at EDCO in Florida this past weekend, and there were people smoking all around us, and I did not even ask for a cigarette once. And I was so close to having a breakdown because I really wanted to have a cigarette and I didn't. And I usually would have broken and gone and gotten a cigarette. But I didn't. So that's a habit that I feel like I have successfully broken, which in the past I would not have been able to break.
I think one habit that I am being more conscious of, but it's negative self-talk. It's something that, I've talked with you about, and you've really helped me along the way as well. And it just kind of comes out, and I don't think about how it's affecting the way that I am looking at myself. And I don't like it. I just don't think it helps that I talk negatively about myself. It's not going to help me grow, you know? So really just working on focusing on more positive aspects of myself. And that's the habit I want to bring into the new year, and really get rid of the habit of just, again, negative self-talk, downplaying my skills, my assets, and leaving that piece in 2023.
One habit that I'm going to leave in 2023 is doom scrolling. So,
yes,
yeah,
that's a good one too.
I think I have a bad habit of doom scrolling whenever I'm bored, and I'm slowly beginning to learn I have other interests. I should start doing those more. So, long story short, yeah, I just won't be doom scrolling as much because it's not really worth my time. It's not worth my effort. And yeah, there's an educational part of TikTok, but 9 times out of 10, it's not educational. So that's something I'll be leaving.
What about good habits that we have formed or are looking to form and continue on in the new year? And I know for me, I think that healing is going to continue, right? I don't think our viewers know this, but as you both know, I've been losing a lot of weight. And so I think a big part of that is because I've been seeing a lot of medical doctors and trying to figure out everything with my hormonal balance and trying to figure out with my PCOS. And so the one thing that I hope to not do in 24 is go back to the doctor. I'm tired of going to the doctors. But just continue that healing journey, continue to, get back to the healthy weight that I was before the weight gain with PCOS and get my hormones back in check. Continue my healing my relationship with food. Um, but I think the biggest thing for me is healing my relationship with money. I think you two have heard this multiple times where I'm like, I'm just working on my budget today, or have a big budget sheet. So I really want to work on my relationship with money. I started my retirement savings account already. I've been looking into a Roth IRA. I've been looking into a high yield savings account. So those are the habits I'm looking at into 2024.
I think that's something that I definitely am also working on. But the biggest, I don't know if this would be categorized under habits. It's um, better connections with my parents. And so far, I feel that we're in a much healthier place. You know, similar to a conversation you had earlier about how, you and your sisters were not that close. That's how I felt like you knew more about me than my parents did. Because I just did not feel comfortable with them. We were not in that place. We were not healed as a family. And it was really sad because I just did not feel like I could talk to my parents, and they held this title as parents, but that was it. We did not hold the relationship as that. And I've always wanted to be able, like, I was envious of people who had that kind of relationship. But, after my divorce, it was really a focus of mine. And I want to say this year has been very successful. Uh, it's not like we talk every single day, but I feel that my relationship with my dad has gotten a lot better. I'm also really, really proud of him and how far he's come in his journey. The small little bit of conversations we get have been absolutely amazing. It's always nice to hear from them, you know, and that's something that I want to continuously grow into, not just 2024, but prolonged future. Continuously grow our relationship as a family.
Yeah, I think I took it more literally. So I think some of the habits that I've created this year, I'm going to follow into the new 2024 year with. So I've been waking up earlier. I used to never be an early bird, but I wake up at 5 now, and I wince when I say that, but I wake up at 5. So that's what I was sort of thinking is like maybe just doing a quick rundown of my habits in the morning and night. But so usually Monday through Friday with a Wednesday break day, I'll usually wake up at 5 a.m., work out at 6, do a full low cardio, low intensity, or Pilates at home workout. And then I always end that with a cold shower, which stimulates your vagus nerve. And then after that, I'll usually have breakfast, which I never did in the past. So that also helps with my blood pressure levels and blood sugar. So I currently eat 3 meals a day, which is new. And then I also take supplements along with that. And then so for work-wise, like I work off of a Pomodoro effect, which is 25 minutes on, 5 minutes break. So I find that that's really effective in my sort of lifestyle and how I work. And then to go off of that, I also like to clock off at 4 p.m. every single day. And that's just to protect my mental stability and to make sure that I can show up the next day at my best self. For my night routine, I've been trying to follow a strict routine and it hasn't always been working, but I basically do like a list. I have a habit tracker list now to sort of track my good habits, which is, my night routine consists of doing a gratitude list, meditating, reading, and also listening to a podcast to wind down. And I guess that'd be my last and final habit, which I've been sticking to pretty well, is making sure that I can wind down 30 minutes to an hour before bed.
Yeah. And
Mhm.
all great habits. Thanks for listing those out. I guess the one thing that I want to ask you two is how do you make sure that you are meeting your goals for these habits? I know how I do, but I want to know how you plan on keeping yourself on track. I know, Ari, you kind of hit on that, but I want to know how you've been doing it so far because I know how I have, but I want to know how you plan on doing it for new habits that you plan on forming. And I'm happy to jump in to start us off.
Yeah.
So, like Ariel, I didn't go into too much detail, but like Ariel, I also have been forming new habits and after seeking medical help. So I've also been waking, I'm not a morning bird at all, point blank. They know this. I'm a night owl, but I've been waking up early every day. Early for me is 6:30 and I hate it, but I do it because I'm trying to implement the 30-30-30 exercise, which is 30 minutes when you wake up. You want to eat breakfast within the 30-minute window after you wake up. And then you let the food sit for a little bit. And with breakfast, you eat at least 30 grams of protein. And then you work out for 30 minutes. And so that's the 30-30-30 exercise. And then I've actually felt a lot more energized. I've been doing that for 3 weeks now. Every day I've done that. Um, and I've been getting into the habit of prepping breakfast so that I don't have to cook in the morning too. So I do overnight oats sometimes, and sometimes I do want to cook. So I do eggs and cottage cheese. So those are the new habits of eating breakfast. I used to not be a breakfast person, and I used to not be a morning person, but I've gotten up every day at 6:30, and I've eaten breakfast every day for the past 3 weeks. But part of that is for blood sugar, but mainly for me, it's my blood pressure because I do have hypertension. And a big part of it is for my PCOS because I have high cortisol PCOS. And so a big part of it is to make sure that I'm controlling my hormones with that. And so how I make sure that I am meeting my goals, you're conditioning yourself to get used to these things and you're rewarding yourself, right? Every time you meet your goal or every time you accomplish your habit, tell yourself you did a good job. Reward yourself, right? The first time I got up at 6:30 and I did the 30-30-30 exercise, I was like, wow, good job, Emily. Pat yourself on the back. I gave myself an extra 30-minute break during work. And I felt so good. And I did it again the next day and I praised myself again. And I make sure to give myself that extra encouragement. And it really is like training yourself to just feel good about yourself. And I know that to some people that might sound horrible, but for me, that's what I have to do. And so now, like, I don't even have to have my alarm on anymore. I just wake up at before 6:30. Like this morning, I woke up at 6:24. My alarm clock didn't even go off yet. And so those are the new habits that I'm carrying on. And I always make sure to tell myself that I'm doing a good job. And it's that, as Dochi said, that internal monologue that you have for yourself, right? Change that self negative talk into self positive talk. Your self affirmation, as Ariel pointed out, right? What are you telling yourself every day so that you can meet those goals and you're forming new good habits? So that's how I'm making sure that I keep my habits and I'm meeting my goals. And that's what I did when I was quitting smoking is every time I didn't have a cigarette, I told myself, good job, you did so good. And that made me feel good about myself. Um, and if that's what you have to do to make sure that you don't do a bad habit or you keep up a good habit, do that for yourself. So that's what I did.
I think I'm gonna let you go because I actually don't have like a tracker, and I've tried utilizing those themes before. I've tried apps before. I've tried lists before. Um, I honestly just feel like I get so distracted, for example, when we were going to EDCO, I created a list and I laminated it. Did I bring it? No. So there's a lot going on internally that needs to be figured out for sure. But there are a few things that I have tried, and like in your case, the working out, when I first moved at my aunt's, that was one thing I really wanted. I just felt like there wasn't enough time in the day, so I was trying to restructure my day, and I realized like, well, okay, well, instead of like staying up so late and being exhausted anyways the next day, I might as well just sleep when I'm supposed to and then get up like earlier. And I was doing like not 5 a.m. I wasn't that committed, unfortunately. I would do like a 6 a.m. because then it gave me just enough time, and then I would also be able to see the sunset. It was like getting a couple things in one, and I would go rollerblade, and that would be my morning workout. So a couple of things with that is it reminds me of just the beauty in life because I love seeing the sunset come up. And then on top of that, just getting that fresh air. Typically, I would go to like the gym. Nothing wrong with being in a gym setting, but I just found more appreciation in that outdoorsy. It was still so quiet in the morning, kind of hearing the birds chirp. And so, that, and then along with the rollerblading, it really brought back childhood memories. So I enjoyed it all kind of at once. And I was doing that habitually for at least a good month and a half. And I think I went on a trip or something and it just right out of my brain. So I'm liking the lists and the recommendations that you guys have been making. And I'm note taking it in my brain so that hopefully I can implement that to my own schedules and be able to upkeep with my habits.
So I feel like when you say how can you become disciplined and sticking with your habits, I think it really comes to who do you want to become in the next year. So in the book that I was reading, Atomic Habits, so I like to think of it from this way because this way you understand yourself better. But as humans, we function on a four-way cycle, and it's the acronym is CCRR, which is cue, craving, response, reward. So that's basically the cycle of how a habit is formed. And so one really great example is like the cue is my alarm goes off at 5, and then the craving is I want to get up, hopefully. The response is I will go brush my teeth. And then the reward is I get to work out. So really understanding from a like bird's eye view how you operate as a human being and what can potentially motivate you and what can cue you to start your habits is essential. And then I think the second thing that helped me the most is that I was one of those people too who made out the perfect ideal morning, but I had a very hard time sticking to it. And the purpose behind that is because as humans, when you try to do 10 things at once versus one thing at a time, you get overwhelmed. So one way that I really worked around this is that I would say that like I gradually put things into place. So like if you listen to previous episodes, you know that I wasn't taking care of myself, that I basically hadn't exercised for anywhere from like 3 to 5 years in college. So getting up early at 5 a.m. just wasn't it for me. So what that looks like on a realistic timeline for me was that I started by waking up at 7, and then I gradually woke up earlier. So I'd wake up at 7. Next week I'd wake up at 6:45, and then after that, the third week I'd wake up 15 minutes earlier. So I do feel like that's one of the things that we tend to do is like we tend to overwhelm ourselves with all this improvement and all this good stuff. And that's obviously not a bad thing. It's just that for people like me who have a hard time like switching ourselves into becoming this like brand new person, it can be really hard. And so I think that'd be my second piece of advice is slowly, and in the book he talks about it becoming 1% better every single day. You don't need to switch into 10 new different things every single day, but even if you're just doing one new thing every single day and keeping on to that for 60 days in a row, then you're going to be 1% better at the end of the year.
Yeah, that reminds me of a TED Talk someone did where they were talking about even if you were only able to brush your teeth for 10 seconds, at least you brushed your teeth for 10 seconds.
Yeah.
Right? If you were only able to brush your teeth for 30 seconds the next day, at least you did it for 30 seconds the next day.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's the effort that you put into it more than not doing it at all.
Yeah.
So that's a really great point.
Yeah, and to add on to that, like it just compounds. And if you read Atomic Habits, an habit, sorry, is something that compounds very slowly. It's not dramatic, but small.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think the third point that I want to touch base on is that every time you show up for yourself, you are compounding that action. So for me, it was I want to be a little bit more athletic and I want to take care of my body and move it. So every time that I showed up at the gym, whether it was in the PM or AM, is a step towards the person I want to become for myself. So I think looking at it from a very like bird's eye view gives you the perspective of who you want to become in the future and how you can act towards that.
It's the little things that you allow to build up that can weigh you down. And it's the little things that you do to build yourself up that will allow yourself to free yourself from what is holding you back as well. So Atomic Habits is a really good book if you haven't had a chance to read it. They also have the audiobook online, so read that if you haven't. But they also have a TED Talk from the author, I believe, that talks about the main points of that. So it's a really good book.
Yeah. And to add on to that too, like I'm a very visual learner. And so that's why we mentioned like habit tracking. Like I like seeing my progress visually. And then along with that, breaking up your goals into quarters as well, along with action steps. Because back to the book, they often talk about like how your systems is what makes up your success and it's not your habits or your goals technically. So just keeping that in mind, like how can you actually put that into action based off of the systems that you put into your life?
Which is a great segue into the changes that we've made to how we accomplish our goals as we've grown older. And you touched on this a little bit, Ariel, about how you've made small changes as you've grown older. But us compared to 5 years ago, right? We used to set goals differently compared to 5 years ago. So let's talk about how we've changed from how we make goals now compared to 5 years ago, and how I guess to be blunt, is how more realistic we are now compared to 5 years ago, and how we plan on doing that moving forward.
So for my goals, I feel that when I was younger, they weren't very realistic. I felt that I had too much on my plate at once, and I was trying to accomplish too much at once or within a time period that just, again, was not realistic. One great example is I always want to save, but not only did I figure out this amount that was not going to happen based on my paycheck and, my daily living expenses, I also never actually cultivated a plan that would work. I never even created a plan. It would be as simple as I want to save this much by the end of next year. And I'm just going to save, I'll take out money, or it was very generalized. And now having grown older, typically I would write these things down so that I do better at things when I write it down. So I typically will create my list and everything. But looking back and reading through all of the goals that I've set, very few have been accomplished. That's why sometimes I have to really think back to, okay, what really pushed me to accomplish the things that I did in the past? What worked and what didn't? So for me, I feel like a lot of my biggest accomplishments had to do with school, and like, for example, graduating from college. Although I did not love going to school, I really, really enjoyed learning. Like the courses that I was successful in had a lot to do with the fact that I enjoyed the content. And it was less of a chore. So understanding that the habits that I create, instead of looking at it as a chore to get to my end goal, making it a habit, making it something that is enjoyable, rethinking task at hand. And so that is the first biggest part. It's revisualizing whatever that task is I need to do to get to my end goal. And then also more realistic end goals. So instead of being like, I'm going to save $100,000 by the end of next year, I'm looking at my budget now and seeing like how much I make, what can I realistically save and still be at the goal, or be closer to my end goal. And also setting up like a smaller milestone throughout the way to check in. Because before it would literally be just 2024 beginning and then bam, 2024 the end. And there's really no check-ins. So checking in along the way to make sure that I'm where I'm supposed to be at.
So in the past, I never really took the time to review what I've accomplished. And so a lot of the times, again, understanding myself enough, like I am the kind of person who will put my work, my achievements. So I've learned to slow down and to not only review my year before, but to also come up with a more like disciplined way of creating goals for myself, because I think that's the way that I was able to accomplish the things that I wanted to instead of, being overwhelmed with everything that I wanted to do. I made it more on a simplified timeline for myself. And so, for example, I talk about it a little bit in my book, but using the sort of method that I'll go through with you in the next minute, I was able to pay off my car. I was able to finish college. I was able to write a book and just a bunch of other things that I was able to do by doing this. But essentially, it's a really easy 4-step thing where first you really do want to do a reflection on the past year. So really looking at what have you done well, what isn't working for you, and along with that, what can you improve on? I think it's really important because as Doji was mentioning that, you'll do all these things and then the year will pass by and then you're sort of left at the end of the year like being like, oh, where did everything go? So I think it's really important to do like a 9 month or 6 month at least review of your life to make sure you're on track and to make sure that you're going on the right path. Second is looking at the goals that you set for this year and getting into alignment with that. So I've gotten really good at choosing like my 1 to 3 like really urgent goals. And it can be as easy as, oh, I want to eat healthier, or, oh, I want to go to the gym 4 times a week. So it doesn't need to be these big, overwhelming things, but choose the 1 to 3 things that make the most sense for you and your lifestyle, and then stick to it. And then obviously create a system and those action steps per quarter. Third, I think really creating the vision board and visualizing yourself achieving that is what's most crucial. So in my friend groups, I'm mostly the Delulu friend. It's like, no, in terms of like, I'll explain. So my one girlfriend was like, oh, I want to open a coffee shop. And I was like, that's not big, think bigger, I think that whatever you put your mind to, it doesn't need to be put in a timeline, but you do need to dream bigger sometimes. And I feel like a lot of men and women don't do that enough. So that's what I mean by Delulu friend. Not completely crazy. But I do feel like visualizing yourself achieving your goal, however small or big that is for you, I think that's essential because in my book, I talk a little bit about manifestation and basically how you can have that rolling into your life easier is acting like you're already there. So one really good example is my friend who wanted to open up a bakery shop. She envisioned that and she wrote down literally word for word. I enter in to I open my bakery shop, I open it, and I instantly smell croissants or whatever she wanted to smell. So getting those little grains and little details is essential for making sure that, you're able to live in that moment and to make sure that you don't wait until that moment to give yourself that happiness. I think along with visualization and visualizing your future self, I would also think about vision boards, as Dochi said. So I really like vision boards because those can be placed on your phone homepage. They can be put on your laptop homepage. They can be printed out and put somewhere physically. But I think vision boards are a great way of putting in all aspects of your life and envisioning who you want to be and putting that on a board for you to picture. So that's where I would go with that. And then I think fourth is really just, again, setting up the systems that you want to use in the future in order for you to succeed. So whether that is like quarterly goals and then breaking it down by steps, or just doing one goal per year and then reinforcing that future identity of yourself first. I think having a clear action of what you want for your next year and your goals is what's essential and key in making sure that you succeed in doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You answered the question for us. I think we're done. What I'm hearing from the both of you is, how do we make SMART goals, right? How do we make it attainable, right? Something that's within reach. And I think a really good example is something specific from my life that I think other people can use is, what are you doing in your everyday life already that you can kind of adjust to improve your life, right? If you're already eating breakfast every day, but you want to make it healthier, to make sure that you are attaining a healthier lifestyle, how can you change that in 2024? Because then you're already eating breakfast. All you need to do is adjust it a little to make it healthier. That's something that you can change and do in 2024, right? These small changes that are attainable, that you can track in 2024. Or you can follow the plan that Ariel was talking about, or you can do what Dochi is talking about. So I think what works for you, just again, make sure that you're not making yourself go through leaps and bounds to try to accomplish a goal that oftentimes can take years to accomplish. I really want to focus on what you were focusing on in your conversation, Ariel, which is manifestations. I think we both have talked about it a little bit in this session here, but I'm pretty sure a lot of people who are listening may not have heard of that. And so let's talk a little bit more about what that means when it comes to talking about manifesting our goals and how that can help us accomplish our goals in 2024.
Where do we start? I have a whole book on that.
You do. So let's start there. What is your book about, first of all? And why did you decide to have it focus on manifestation? And then from there, we can talk about how we use manifestation in our lives.
Sure. So, I guess it just came out of pure curiosity because I am not a very spiritual person, but I've always heard about manifestation. And so for me, I just wanted to learn more about it. And along with that, I wanted to create a resource for people as well. And so while I was doing research for myself, I decided to create this book out of a need that I had and that I knew that other people had as well. And I wanted to do it in a way where it wasn't all woo-woo, because like that's one of the off points, or one of the things that I didn't really like is that it was very like, it sounded very woo-woo and people who were going around mats and stuff. But anyway, long story short, like a solid year to probably put it together, and doing some research and like podcasts, listening to YouTube videos, reading. So I did like all of that, and then I combined it into one really nice book. So it's, I hate putting in my plug here, but you can get it at www.manifestwitharian.com. And it's an ebook along with the workbook. So you read, and then you also have work pages at the end of each chapter and extras at the end. So I've heard a lot of really good feedback on it, but if you purchase it, let me know how you feel, and you can always email me at manifestwitharian@gmail.com. But essentially, the workbook and ebook focuses on what manifestation is, the methods of manifestation, how you can use it, and how you can transform your life into becoming your best self. So I'm not going to dig too deep into it because that's not what this episode is about. But manifestation is basically the practice and process of creating your future vision or life, and then aligning your thoughts, actions, beliefs, etc. to attract what you want. And so the best way that I can sort of explain it to you is that you manifest every single day because you think, you act, and you also do things. So in the first few pages of the book, I talk about Savage Sam, and I also talk about another girl. I'm bad at names, but
That's a good name too.
yeah,
That's some sad name.
it's sad. I made it sad intentionally.
Yeah.
But basically, I compared two women's lives. One is, she gets up, she's happy, she goes to work that fulfills her. And then she also has great friends, and she also has great social life, and she comes home and has a healthy, ritual, or like a healthy winding down sort of routine. And then the second woman, she is basically someone who hates going to work, regularly gets up, doesn't really eat breakfast, and has like her own little routine that's the complete opposite of person A. And basically, these two people are in two different situations, and they have two completely different histories. But the point to this long story is that they are both manifesting different things because of the way they act, the things that they think, and their belief systems. So I just put that out there, not to obviously like scare you or anything, but the moment from when you wake up to the time that you think, you eat, you act on things, that is what is going to actively manifest into your life.
And that goes into what your daily goals are, right? Is
Yes.
your goal for the day to accomplish, have a good day, right? Is your goal to change what your daily routine is or not?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's a great way to start, right? It's, what is my goal for today? Is my goal for today to have the same day that I did the day before?
Mm-hmm.
Or is my goal for today to have one thing new from yesterday? Try one new thing or do something different, right? Even if it's take a different route home, right? Or go for a walk for today, just something different, right? Because like you said, you're manifesting all the time, right? What's the goal for today? What am I trying to manifest into my goals? Or what am I trying to do with the world right now so that I can accomplish my bigger goal? And so that's why I asked you to clarify, what is manifestation, right? Because we were talking about that. We're talking about what manifestations we're putting out there for our bigger goals, right? And so it plays a big role in our little everyday goals that, again, compounds into these bigger things. So thanks for clarifying.
Yeah.
So definitely. That was my clarification too. It's just I use Ariel's book. Well, I finished it, but I did use it for a little bit because I was again on that journey of what am I trying to accomplish for myself? What are my goals? And I had a lot of goals because I'm also the Delulu friend.
Yes.
And that's why Ariel and I get along so well because we have these big ideas and we hype each other up. We're like, yes, or you could do this,
Yeah.
or you could do this.
Yeah.
And at some point, we're like, okay, we should probably bring each other back down to earth and then start over.
Yeah.
But that's why when we get talking, we're just kind of like, well, what can we do? What can we explore? What avenues are there to kind of grow and learn? And so I did use her book to really help me because I do want to become a published author as well. And my timeline was by the end of 2023, I want to have at least a rough draft of a book that I want to get published, right? Just a rough draft. And if anyone who's written any kind of novel, literary novel, fictional novel, nonfiction or fiction, which is not real. It's hard because you're working with concepts that are made up in your head, and so it was really hard to do that. And using Ariel's book, and I was just like putting things out there, specific things. I'm manifesting that I will be able to write at least this chapter using this concept with my dreams and whatnot. And so I was able to get a rough draft out there, and it's sitting on my desk over there. And so using these things and using these ideas to help you accomplish your goal, right? That's the point of, right, creating goals and making sure that you're meeting your goals, especially when you're trying to think of, okay, new year, new me, what do I want to do? What can I use to help motivate me? Manifesting is just one of those tools that you can use.
And Emily brings up a really good point and things that she's talking about right now about her goals. And I think it's interesting because I do have people who say, oh, I want to manifest $1 million. One thing that I really like making clear is that you have to make sure that it's within your control and just within yourself, right? Because a lottery is,
Yeah.
So you control that.
You can put it out there if you
But-
want to, but it's not going to work, right?
Yeah.
I put it out there all the time. Doesn't mean it's going to work, but you got to do things again within your control. That's what a goal is, right? Your goal is something that you control. You move your goalpost as far away from you as you want. And if you don't work towards that goal, you're never going to make it to it, right? It's just visualize soccer. If the goal is over there and you're not moving yourself towards your goal, you're never going to make the goal. So, any parting words for our listeners and viewers for new year, new us?
I think, well, one thing that I didn't really get to talk about is one new thing that I do want to begin incorporating into my routine is giving myself breaks each morning and then checking in with myself each morning. So, especially with my hormonal imbalance stuff that I'm dealing with and still healing from, a lot of the times, depending on what's like time of the cycle that I'm in, I'll have different energy levels. And so I do want to begin checking in with myself and then making sure that I show up how I need for myself, whether that's giving myself more grace or not doing the high intensity interval workout or just doing something that I need, like slowing down and taking a hot shower. But I think listening to myself, and if you think that that's something you might need, I highly encourage it.
Take a picture whenever you feel happy, whether if it's of yourself or if you're taking a walk somewhere and it's a pretty sunset or pretty sky or a pretty tree that makes you feel happy. Take a picture of that moment and remember it because you're living in that moment. And you're working towards your goal, right? If you're on a walk because you're trying to meet your goal and you feel happy in that moment, take a picture of it and capture that moment. But also grab the affirmation jar. Actually, that's something that I want to talk about. What I've done is I've printed a bunch of affirmations, and this is what I'm trying to do every day is tell myself an affirmation every day. And I actually do this every morning too. When I'm eating breakfast, I pull an affirmation to make myself feel better. And we each already pulled one, but we're going to pull another one.
So since the first time you did this, I was like, you know what? I'm going to do this too.
Uh-huh.
So I put mine at work at my desk where every time I get frustrated, I pull out an affirmation so that I'm not in a bad mood. And it's been working.
Yeah. And so these affirmations have been something that I do every day just to help me get through the day. And so my affirmation is your perspective is unique, it's important, and it counts. That's perfect for the moment. Here we go.
Okay. I release the past and trust that everything is happening for my greatest good.
That's so perfect.
I'm like not fitting to this episode or what?
So mine is I don't let my fears keep me from following my dreams.
See, I always talk about dream big, don't let people.
This affirmation jar knows what we need in the moment. I'm telling you.
I love it.
I know you like to make fun of me shaking this up, but it works. So that's my advice to you. Do what you need in the moment that makes you feel good.
Agreed.
What about you? Any parting words?
No. I'm sorry, I'm totally blank-minded.
I'm gonna leave that in the podcast. Any parting words? No.
I think I want to say that a lot because I have not really done a lot of manifesting and you know, I think I just haven't started my journey. Like listening, I've been doing just like listening to a lot of, what is it, like ebooks to kind of get a start at it, to figure out a direction. Uh, but I've not taken on a lot of like the manifesting actions. So this episode has been more of a learning experience.
Well, I think that that's it for the episode for today. So thanks for joining us and listening if you're listening to the podcast, and watching if you're on YouTube. But if you haven't, go ahead and like the video. If you want to get a notification for more videos, go ahead and subscribe. And you can go ahead and follow us on social media. Otherwise, come back for more. We hope to see you soon.